It is another sunset in Temecula. I am probably not prepared for this in any way, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm not exactly sure what to do with this particular sunset. I think it might be best if I let it play out. Lots has happened. There's a lot to unpack. I am a weak human being, strengthened with powers to get through my day only by God. No other source of power gets me through the day, because I have been struggling daily with accepting my role in this new life that I live, accepting my new life, and understanding that accepting my new life means accepting my past, forgiving myself. I'm dealing with a lot of self-forgiveness right now. I am depressed, unemployed, feeling isolated, and in many ways abandoned, simultaneously found, sanctified, purified, and provided with new hope for future. That hope, though, rests on the faith that I have in God, the promise to myself that I will forever believe my experience to be true. With every passing day, my grasp on that belief wavers a little more, and mostly because I never would have expected to feel so energetically low in the midst of raising a child. I forgive myself every day for having a baby with a person out of wedlock. I now understand all too well why that is so important. I would encourage others to abstain from having children out of wedlock. I would also remind anybody listening that that is depending on what part of the height of the bar you're referencing, whether that's a low or high bar, that's kind of relative to the person listening, but abstaining from having children out of wedlock is, I would think, a pretty low bar. You can have a lot of sex and abstain from having children out of wedlock. I can describe multiple types of sex that you can have that abstains you from having children out of wedlock. Two off the bat is oral and anal. You will not have children if you conduct in only oral and anal sex simultaneously, or excuse me, not simultaneously, but additionally, there is birth control, whether that's a condom or whether that's some kind of inserted pill. That is another way to abstain from having children. Now, again, you're not abstaining from having sex. You're abstaining from having children out of wedlock. I am getting to know the person who I have endeavored to have a child with out of wedlock. Simultaneously, I am getting to know myself. I have changed more in the last 2 years than I've ever changed in the 41 years that I've been alive. I have been forced to face my depression, the depression that I've been carrying since my divorce, the depression that I just didn't and don't want to work on because it means that I have to forgive my ex-wife. And that is another part of the forgiveness that I've been struggling to execute. It's hard to say out loud that I forgive my ex-wife because of the circumstances, or you don't. I might as well say it one more time because I've said it so many times. And, again, you don't know it, but I was married, and that marriage ended, and it ended, I think it was December 21st, 2011, and, like 4 days before Christmas, 2011, and or was it? No, it might have been 2 days after Christmas. I struggle to remember because most of it was painful memories that I have been repressing, but it might have been a couple days after Christmas. And my wife of 3 years, partner of 10 years, had her bags packed when I had come home from work and had sat me down at a table and explained that we were going to separate, and that separation was more than likely going to lead towards a divorce, that it wasn't about counseling, it wasn't about what it was about was, and I'll never forget it, she said that she didn't like the way I treated my family. She didn't believe I was ever going to be ready to have kids. And the third one, which, was a struggle, but she didn't like the way I treated her, and that was a struggle because she was a rather cold person, so am I. So I was going to counseling, I was doing a lot to pay attention to my character flaws. One being an anger management flaw that I'm not the only person in the world suffering from, which doesn't make it right. It does make it something that I need to address. And, as a result of the divorce, I just paid no attention to it. And I know I have a lot of energy built up that I need to channel. But doing that has been less than easy, mostly because of lack of focus. And I often think that I foolishly avoided working long hours at a job I didn't want to do because I was under the impression that if I spent more time focused on circumstances that had very little probability of working out in my favor, I would have ended up with more money by this point in my life, without a doubt. I struggle to accept that because I understood what I was doing when I was saying no to opportunities, jobs that were just jobs, not work that allowed me to feel like I was living in LA, focused on the work that I came there to do. Having said that, I do have a body of work, given I came from nowhere and I knew nobody, and I got a couple good jobs, and then my life turned upside down. Life happened, and it was all too complicated to find the money to invest in my acting career and survive. And then I struggled to find a good job at that age without really thinking to myself that I should make a career change. I wasn't ready to lose a wife, lose a dad, and lose a career all in 1 year. And I think that I was supposed to. I think I was supposed to walk away from it then, and I didn't. And I'm supposed to forgive myself for that, because the Lord works in threes. He doesn't work in twos. And those are 3 things that I was supposed to accept were over. I was supposed to accept that my career was over 8 years ago. And in a way I did, and in a way I didn't. Because if I truly did, I would have just gone and gotten a production job in LA 8 years ago. And I would have just worked, because I knew and know exactly what I'm doing in the industry in just about every department. It's just a matter of going and getting a job. I didn't do that 8 years ago, and I could do it now. But now I have a child, and now living in LA is not an option unless there are so many other variables working in his favor, like private school, timeshare type of thing, where he's with kids and families that in a way are pre-approved. Not necessarily, militant lifestyle, but with what happened with the pandemic, and people want to walk around like we are not vulnerable to having the government just tell us to start wearing masks again, and tell us to stay home again, and tell us to stop working again. They're wrong. And we have our cards stacked against us. Between the relationships between corporate America and the private sector. I had to pause. The baby was awakened. I realized I haven't really even recapped or updated. As of right now, I am living with Lauren. We are co-parenting Elijah, and 2 people parenting Elijah. I have no idea if what's happening is good or bad for Elijah. I'm sure Lauren thinks it's bad. But right now, presently, it's 2 people trying to raise a kid while realizing they have some deep traumas from their own childhoods that are unresolved, and were not, mentally prepared to be parents suddenly. And it's hard to wrap my head around how much is happening all at once. I'll be going to a psychiatrist very soon, October 19th. 2022 is when all this is going to get started. And as of right now, I'm praying to God that, His hand works and that whatever is going to happen, happens. But I'm ready to allow all things, all possibilities to work. Even as far as walking away from self-medicating myself with marijuana and trying something else, or maybe just stopping all kinds of medications, just no more medications at all. I don't know. I mean, honestly, having a connection with God, there really is no other influence. After what I've experienced, it seems that everything else just pulls one away from God. And as much as I want to live a stress-free life, a God-like life, it seems like those two things struggle to coexist in the same room. It seems quite stressful to be godlike, to live godlike, to do the right thing all the time. Especially when you're a fool, you're a human, and you make mistakes and rarely think of the consequences of your actions, even though we tell everybody all the time, each other, that's what everybody should do. Most of us rarely do that. Most of us just make the same mistakes as everybody else. Most of us assume we are above the law, able to get away with things. Who knows what those things are. It's different for everybody, but we all struggle with being human and realizing that the path to righteousness is, fraught with hardship, and it's not just to say hardship, it's just personally hard to watch others come up cheating, to constantly want to do the right thing and only realize that if I had done the wrong thing a few times, my life would have been quite different. Maybe not, who knows. My dignity is still intact.